Namaskar. Good morning. Uh, Welcome to the sixth and the last session of MMPC 012, the Strategic Management. I'm Dr. Siran Mukerji, Additional Director in ICNO Regional Center, Noida. So let's now move on with the course contents of this last session. If you all recall, we had 4 blocks in the course structure of MMPC 012. The block 1 was Introduction to Strategic Management. Block 2 was Environmental Analysis. Block 3 was Formulation of Strategy. And block 4 was Strategy Implementation and Control. So far in the previous 5 sessions, we have tried to understand what is strategic management, the concept, the strategic management framework, and we had tried to discuss in detail the external environmental analysis, the importance of external environmental analysis in strategic management in an organization, the comparative analysis, in which we had discussed the Michael's framework of competitive advantage, 5 forces framework of competitive advantage. Then we had also discussed the internal environmental analysis, the importance of internal environmental analysis in an organization and how it is done. Then we moved on to the block 3, which was formulation of strategy. And in formulation of strategy, we tried to see the business level strategies, how they are formulated, the competitive level strategies, how they are formulated, and also where a corporate body is involved, what kind of strategy is formulated, how it is formulated, the importance of it, and also who all are the people who are involved in the formulation of corporate level strategies. So friends, now we are at the last block, that is the strategy implementation and control. So we know the importance of strategy, we know how it is to be formulated. Now, once we have formulated the strategies, we need to implement it. And once we implement it, then our work is not complete there. We need to check whether, as and when it is being implemented, we have to see that by specific control measures, how the strategy which was implemented is moving in the course of direction, in the stated course of direction, that is the course of action that we're supposed to take, the plan of action that we are supposed to implement towards achievement of organizational objectives, whether we are in the right path or not, whether we are following the charted course or not, and if whether by following the charted course, by following the path, are we able in the organization, are we able to achieve the organizational objectives? Are we moving in that direction? If we see that yes, the organizational objectives, the goals which have been stated, because of which we have done the strategic formulation, if we see that yes, we are moving in that direction, that means we are doing the right thing, we are at the right path. But if we see that in spite of all these efforts, in spite of implementing the strategies, in spite of implementing the plan of action, if we see that our organizational objectives, which is basically the raison d'etre, the main reason for us to be there, if the organizational objectives are not being met and not being achieved, that means there is something wrong somewhere. So in order to find out what is wrong, we need to evaluate the whole process. and then we need to control. So this control, strategic control and strategic evaluation, this is an integral and continuous process of strategic implementation. So implementation, once again I will say, is not just enough. While we are implementing the plan of action, we have to see whether the organizational objectives, the goals, or for that matter, the direction in which we are supposed to head, whether we are moving in the right direction or not. So control and evaluation, these are two equally important processes in the strategic management. Okay, as you saw, we have 4 units in this last block, block 4, implementation behavioral dimensions. We're going to discuss 11th unit, the corporate governance, and quickly we'll discuss unit 12, that is control, and unit 13, that is evaluation. Now, implementation of behavioral dimensions, the unit 12. So, at the end of this unit, what are you going to understand? You will be able to understand the concept of strategic change. Then you will be able to, because when we are implementing the strategies, there will be obviously, there will be change occurring in the organization. So, we have to understand the concept of this change, and this change is not a minor change, it's a very major change that we are trying to bring in to the organization. That's why we're calling it a strategic change. So we understand that, we'll be able to understand the role of leadership in this entire process, the concept of leadership, the various functions of leaders, the leadership styles which were also discussed earlier, and importance of ethics and values. So strategic change. Now, it's very important to know how much change can be implemented. See, we cannot bring in all of a sudden drastic changes in the organization. It has to be a very gradual process. So once we are implementing a fresh set of plan of action, we are implementing a fresh set of strategies in the organization towards achievement of goals. So then we have to see how much change can be implemented. Why, how much change can be implemented? It's very important to know that, because as and when we are bringing in the change in the organization, we have to bring in a lot of, with this change, we have to bring in a lot of let's say change in the thought process, change in the way people, the employees think, change in the structure of the organization, change in the resources that we have. So it's a very important thing. We cannot bring change in a go. We cannot bring drastic changes. It has to be a gradual process, and it has to be a very judicious process that can be taken up by the organization. And for this, not one managerial style, not one leadership style will succeed. We have to have different working styles for formulation of different strategies. Now, levels of strategic change also determines the strategies to be formulated. So the strategic change that will occur, it will occur, it will be different for different levels. The change occurring at the operational level would be different. The change occurring at the, let's say, middle management level would be different. The change that these strategies are going to bring at the top management level, that is also going to be different. So the levels of strategic change determines the strategies to be formulated. Now, implementation of new strategies also, we know that, as I told you earlier, that when there is a strategic change, a change is being implemented, the change is being brought into the organization, then the organization also has to be reoriented. It has to be redirected. And when we are directing it, so not necessarily that it will, by redirecting the organization, the strategies could be towards, let's say, towards diversification. It could be towards expansion, or it could be, let's say, towards divestment. So depending on what we are looking for in the organization, the direction of the organization, the way it is moving, that will also be determined. So new strategies could bring, either move the organization towards a new industry. Suppose if we are, let's say, we are going into diversification from product A, we feel that no, we have to foray into manufacturing of product B. So then in that case, we are moving into a new direction. So moving into a new direction would mean, accordingly, the strategies would also be would be such. Then changes also require effort. Now effort, this is a complex process, we know. We cannot bring in change overnight. So it is a very complex process, and accordingly, since it's a complex process, see, it's, if we are moving in a new industry, new product line, so that means everything will be changed, and it has to be brought in a very judicious, in a very gradual manner. But at the same time, it should not be so gradual, it should not be so slow a process that by the time we are able to implement the entire strategy, the whole let's say the goal or the objective itself seems redundant in the market. The product itself seems redundant in the market. So, going by how the market is moving, we have to plan our implementation of strategies. Then, management also needs to adapt to the changing times and manage the strategic change. Because, see, management, the top management or the middle management or the, let's say, the lower management, they have the basic responsibility of ushering in this change, of managing the change of at the strategic level. So they have to be open to the change, then only they'll be able to orient the lower level employees. So they have to be open, they have to look towards new direction, then only they will be able to train, they will be able to help the lower level employees to move in the new direction. Now, when we are bringing in this change, as I said, if you recall few minutes back, when we are bringing in any kind of strategic change, any kind of, let's say we are moving in a new direction, then the organization structure also has to match to this strategic change. So, with the same kind of organization structure, we will not be able to achieve the organizational objective. Suppose, as I said in the previous slide, we saw it could be moving to a new industry, it could be developing a new product, it could be, let's say, developing a new service, providing a new service to the already existing clients, customers. So, depending on what we are looking for, what organizational objectives are, we have to accordingly change our organization structure. Suppose if from a national level organization we are moving to a an international level organization, or for example, let's say at present our area of operation is Southeast Asia, and now we are moving towards expanding to Central Asia. So naturally, our organization structure will have to be modified accordingly so that we can cater to the needs of the Central Asian countries. So the organization structure has to be. It's just not enough that we formulate the strategies, we implement them accordingly. We have to match our organization structure with these changing strategies. An organization structure will be designed, will be modified, will be rather redesigned or restructured based on the critical task or the key success factors. So, what our key success factors are, what are our organizational objectives, what are our basic critical tasks in the new strategies that we are trying to implement. Based on that, we will be redesigning our organization structure, which means that in the organization, the top management or the people who are, let's say, at the functional levels, they should have an in-depth understanding of the key success factors. They should have an understanding of the critical tasks, which is crucial for implementing the strategies and restructuring the organization structure. Factors to be considered in strategic change process. Well, there are three factors that are to be considered in the strategic change process when we are trying to bring a change in the organization, a major change, because that's why we're calling it strategic change. So there are three important factors. One is the strategy critical activities. Second is the degree of authority to be delegated to the units, and third is providing for coordination amongst the several units. These are the three important factors which have to be considered by every organization while bringing in any kind of strategic change in the organization. Now, what are the strategy critical activities? They are what functions are to be performed, what critical functions have to be performed, or what functions are to be performed which determine the success or the failure of the organization, of the strategy. So we have to identify those functions. Those functions have to be given more importance. They have to be given more what do you call attention, and we have to see that those functions are performed exceedingly well by the organization, because those functions are responsible for making or breaking the change process. Then where areas where less satisfactory performance will seriously impede the strategy. Now again, apart from finding out, determining the important critical functions, we have to find out the critical or important areas where, which again help us in effective implementation of the strategy. So if in case we neglect those areas, they will impede the development of, or they will impede the implementation of the strategy. And then we have to see, as the people who are responsible for implementing the strategies, they have to be very clear about the activities. They should know that which activity is important, which activity is strategic, and which activity is routine. So the activities which are strategic, we have to give more time to them. We have to give more attention to them. We have to take them into consideration more seriously. Whereas the routine ones, the day-to-day routine activities, we have to look at them also, but then they are not those which will help, which will kind of impede our the whole strategic change process. Then again, the organization also has to be very clear about the degree of authority to be delegated to the units. How much of decentralization is needed in order to ensure effective strategic implementation process. So in the change process, we have to see that if we are ushering in change in the organization towards achievement of our goals, towards achievement of our objectives, we have to see how much authority how is to be delegated and how much is to be centralized. We have to be very clear. If we try to keep everything centralized in one, the authority centered at only one point or one level, and without any kind of autonomy, without any kind of freedom to take any kind of important decisions at the different levels, each level would have a set of decisions which they have to make. So if you don't give the employees that kind of freedom to take the decisions when they are needed, then the system will lag, because for everything they will come and report to you, and you at that level perhaps don't have the time to look into the nitty-gritties of each and every activity that is to be performed. So we have to see in a strategic process, change process, we have to see whether decentralization is required, and of course it will be required, and how much decentralization is to be carried out. And also we have to see the kind of coordination that is required amongst the various units. They cannot work as independent units or independent structures within the organization. Now, leadership and strategic management. Now, the kind of leadership we have in the organization, that again plays a very, very important role in the strategic management process. Now, leadership will not be only the, let's say the leader means, does not mean the, let's say the managing director or the president or the vice president or the general manager of every functional unit. No, leadership runs through, should run like a uniform thread through all the functions of management. So at every level, there is a leader. Even at the operational level, there is a person who is heading the operations, who is heading individual team, individual activity. So all these teams headed by a leader, by a person, they should all be synchronized in their activities. Their activities should all converge towards one direction. They should not move in different directions. There should be also cohesiveness in their thoughts. The functions of the leadership also be clearly spelled out in case of strategic management process. Every person who is heading a team should know what is expected of him or her, and in that context, it is very important to train, to enhance the competency, to develop the competency of all the people who are heading the teams, so that they are able to implement the plan of action as per the requirement of the strategies. Now, functions of leadership and strategic management, basically, there are functions based on three needs of the task. What does that for successfully doing the task, carrying out the task, what are the needs of the individuals, the people who are involved in this particular activity, what are their needs. See, we can't just be bothered about the organization. We have to see whether the employees who are working in the organization, whether they are happy, whether they are satisfied, whether they are comfortable. If they are not comfortable, if they are not safe, if we are not able to provide them a secure grounding, do you think they will be able to perform? No, they will not be able to perform. So, needs of the work, the task that is to be performed, what are the needs? What are the resources required to complete a particular task? What are the needs of the individual, and what are the needs of the groups? All these three needs are required uh, to to implement the activities, the functions of in strategic management. Now, what are the functions? The functions are planning to achieve the task by using the available resources. That is the function of the leader, the team leader. Then initiate work by allocating tasks and resources. Now, who does the division of work? The division of work, work, allocation of resources, that is again the responsibility of the team leader. Then once the allocation has been done, the people have been told what they are required to do. Everybody, he or she knows these are my resources and this is the set of tasks that I am required to perform. Then the next task of the leader is to control and monitor whether the work is being done as per the plans, and if in case they see that the plan is not getting implemented as per the basic requirement, then modify those plans, because timely modification, timely restructuring is very important. Because once the whole work is complete and we see the organizational objectives are not achieved, then the time is lost, resources are wasted, energy is wasted, effort is wasted, so and then we lagging behind. So that is not possible. We have to modify, we have to continuously control, evaluate, control, and accordingly modify the plan of action. And whose responsibility it is? It is not the responsibility of the people who are actually implementing it. It is the responsibility of the team leaders. They are responsible for seeing whether the plan of action is being implemented as per the stated goals and objectives. Then it is also the responsibility, it's also the function of the leader, the team leader, the person who is heading the team, or person who is heading a particular functional department, functional division, to encourage and motivate and train. See, if you are not, as the head of an office, if you're not able to motivate, if you demotivate by saying so many things to your staff, to your employees, then do you think you will be able to achieve the goals? Do you think you will be able to take the organization in the required direction? No. Unhappy employees means lack of productivity. If you want productivity, if you want to enhance the productivity of the employees, you have to see whether the employees are satisfied. You have to encourage them, you have to motivate them, and at the same time you have to provide them the necessary resources. That is, you have to provide them the training. Now, dimensions of leadership style. See, there are so many kinds of leaders. There are risk taking leaders, So there would be some leaders, who would be leaders in the sense the heads of the departments, head of a particular team, head of a particular unit. They could be risk averse, or they could also be risk taking. Then technocracy, then flexibility. You could be having a boss or the head of the division who could be rigid, mechanistic, who does not believe in any kind of flexibility, to flexible decision makers. Then you have participation. You could have people, you could have heads of the units who could be who believe only in autocratic decision making. They believe only in individual decision making. They don't believe in any kind of participative management. They don't believe in democratic decentralization. Two, you could have people who could be team management, who could believe in teams. They believe that it is the team which is winning and team is which is losing, not I. It's not if the organization wins, it's not I who is, it's because of I. No, it is because of my team. I am winning, my team is winning, or rather the team is winning, so I am winning. It's not that I have done and because of which I have won. Then there could be also leadership style, coercive leadership style, or there could be non-coercive, participative, democratic, cordial leadership styles. So we have different dimensions of leadership style. Now let's go on to the corporate governance, the unit 11. Now at the end of this unit, once you are through with this unit, you would be able to understand the different kinds of corporate governance styles, the models of corporate governance, and also the drivers of corporate governance. Now let's quickly go into corporate governance. Now what is corporate governance? Corporate governance is basically a framework of policies, plan of action, guidelines for the organization to follow. So it is a very essential, integral, important component of the corporate sector. It is important for the growth of the corporate sector, and it is very important to for managing the competitive markets. We should have a very effective corporate governance, which means we should have a very effective, very competent framework, guidelines, people providing the guidelines to its employees so that they are able to implement the strategies, they are able to implement the plans towards achievement of the organizational goals. It is an corporate governance, as I said, it is an important integral part of any organization for achieving the objectives. And once we are able to achieve the objectives, that means we are moving towards the growth of the organization. Now, there are two important aspects for understanding the governance, the framework of the organization. One is the internal structure of the organization, and it's not only important to have an understanding, a good knowledge about the internal structure. It's also very important to know our external environment, external structure, and who are part of our external structure: our shareholders and all our stakeholders, our suppliers, our customers, our let's say the government, the people, the public, the general public. Everybody is our stakeholder. Whoever is getting affected by our presence is basically a stakeholder. So corporate governance helps in efficient internal control. Why do we need corporate governance? It also helps in robust management structure, because it's a framework. It's a framework of plans. It's a framework of policies. It's a framework of guidelines. So it is very much essential for robust management structure. It is essential for performance measurement, and it helps in effective succession planning. Who succeeds whom. We have person, let's say Mr. X. Once Mr. X retires, who will take over Mr. X position? So that's kind of succession planning. Or let's say Mr. X gets transferred to another section. So then who takes over? In lieu of him, who takes over his position? So corporate governance also helps in effective succession planning. Now there are certain pillars. There are 5 pillars of corporate governance. What are these pillars of corporate governance? See, the pillars are accountability, type of what do we mean by accountability? That is type of ownership strategy where all the levels of management own the reward, failure, or risk of the organization. Each and every individual is accountable for the failure of the organization. Anything goes wrong, not only failure, we don't talk of failure. Failure is an extreme negative term. Anything that goes wrong in the organization, each and every employee has to take strategic ownership of that failure or even reward. So it's not that if the organization is being rewarded, it has succeeded. It does not mean that it has succeeded because of the top management, or let's say the managers of the various functional units. No, it has succeeded because of all the employees together, working together. So, accountability. Next important pillar of corporate governance is fairness. We have to treat all the stakeholders equally. We have to be fair towards all the stakeholders, and also, which includes the employees. We have to be fair to all the employees. We cannot be biased. We cannot have a kind of partial. We can't be partial. We cannot afford to be partial towards one set of people and negative towards other set of people. So we have to be fair. That is one of the pillars. The third pillar is transparency. The organization should know what is to be disclosed, what important information to be disclosed to the stakeholders and shareholders, because the organizational stakeholders, organizational shareholders, they have a right to know the information, right to know the important details of the organization, because they have invested in the company. They are they are owners, part owners of the organization. So, transparency, we have to be transparent in our dealing. Then, integrity, it is very important for all the organizations, and how we can ensure sound integrity. We can ensure it by positive organizational culture. Then social responsibility. Decision taken by top management should be beneficial for all. That is another pillar, very, very important pillar of corporate governance. The top management, the whole organization as such, they have certain set of responsibility towards the society. Like we had discussed, if you recall, or you would have studied earlier, you would have heard corporate social responsibility. So, corporate social responsibility is also one of the pillars of corporate governance. Now, there are certain models of corporate governance. You can just have a look at these illustrations which I have put in. UK and American model. Well, the British and the American model, they are more transparent and accountable. As you see here, shareholders decide on the board of directors. The board of directors appoint the managers, and the managers, they manage the company. And the creditors, the stakeholders, the legal system, they are all directly related to the company. Then we have also another very important model of corporate governance, that is the German model. Now, in the German model, again, there is a certain amount of information transparency, and it is seen that these organizations are the German organizations with the model of corporate governance. They have more of family-controlled businesses. So here, what you see, contrast to what we saw in the American model. Here we see that in American model, we have the board of directors. Here, what do we have? We have the management board, and the management board has essentially it has a labor relations officer, and the management board, on the management board, is helped by a supervisory board. Now, the employees and the labor unions, the shareholders, they have a direct say in the supervisory board, and then supervisory board helps the management board, and under the management board, then we have the entire company. So it's a completely different kind. Unlike here, where we have board of directors, then we have several managers, and then the managers, they manage the company. Here, what do we have? Here we have the supervisory board. Then the supervisory board manages under the supervisory board we have the management board, and under the management board we have the company which is being managed by them. Then we have the Japanese model. Here, the shareholders monitor and act during emergency. This is a very, very unique aspect of this particular model of corporate governance. That's why I have highlighted it here. The shareholders, they monitor the activity of the organization, and they have the right to act during any kind of emergency. Any kind of emergency means any kind of situation which might impede the growth and development of the organization. If such a situation arises, then the shareholders, they have the right to speak, they have the right to intervene. So what do we have here? We have the president, which includes the president. Under that supervisory board, we have the president. Under the president, we have the board of directors, which is also called the executive management. And then the executive management manages the entire company. A supervisory board that is being monitored by the shareholders in case of any kind of emergency, any kind of situation wherein the organizational growth can be growth gets affected, it gets impeded. Then in that case, the shareholders, they have the right to speak. Now, relationship between corporate governance and strategy, I think they are very, very closely related. See, if the corporate governance, the framework, the guidelines are not sound, if there are no clear-cut guidelines, do you think we'll be able to implement the strategies in the organization? No. The strategies can be implemented, can be, after all, what is a strategy? It's a plan of action. So if the plan of action can be implemented in an effective manner in the organization only when there is sound corporate governance. In the absence of adequate corporate governance, in the absence of adequate guidelines, in the absence of a clear cut, what do you call, framework of policies, the strategic implementation will not be possible. So the relationship is like, importance of stakeholders is stressed by corporate governance. So, in the strategic implementation process, as we know, corporate governance has a very important role to play, and they generally, it is because of governance in the organization, we are able to emphasize on the importance of stakeholders. Then, a set of rules and policies of the organization are defined as a part of strategic management. So, as a part, we know this as a part of strategic management, we are able to develop strategies. What are strategies? Strategies are plan of action. So, part of this plan of action is also the set of rules and policies of the organization, and that basically forms the framework for corporate governance. So, they're very closely related. Then there's a distinction according to this. There's We know that there's a distinction between the owners and managers. So that should also be identified. What is exactly the distinction? And what is the role of the owner? What is the role of the manager in the organization? Then only we'll be able to successfully implement the strategies. Then it also helps the management in effective strategic decision making, helps the organization to be fair towards its investors. If they see all these are basically the responsibilities of the organization. And how we can fulfill our responsibilities? We can fulfill our responsibilities only when there is a sound corporate governance in the organization. Now, challenges, what are the challenges? See, it's not very easy to manage the governance of the large organization. So the challenges are the board appointments, that is a challenge. Whom to appoint, how to appoint, because there are sometimes also a lot of external pressures, there are extraneous factors. So the board of management appointments, that is a challenge. Then who is going to evaluate the directors performance? That is again a challenge. Now, appointment and renewal of independent directors, who is going to appoint, whom to appoint, how to appoint, what is the procedure to appoint these independent directors, and we appoint them for how long. So all these things are basically, they are important factors, and they are basically challenges for corporate governance. Accountability towards stakeholders, how much are we accountable towards the stakeholders? Do we listen to whatever they say? No. So we have to maintain a balance in that. Then another challenge is the role of promoters. They promoters are our company promoters, corporate promoters. Let's say those people who are promoting us, those who are financing us, our banks, our other financial institutions. Now they have a very important role to play. So we have to manage them also very diplomatically, cordially. We have to manage them. Then transparency issues. How much transparency is to be maintained with the organization? How much we are supposed to disclose? What all is to be disclosed to the public, to the stakeholders, and what is confidential? Disclosing what would be harmful for the organization. So all these things are basically they are challenges. They affect the guidelines, they affect the policies of the organization. Then how we are supposed to, in case there is in case of a conflict in the organization, how we are supposed to manage that conflict. Now, level of mistrust, all these are very very delicate issues which cause challenges for the governance, for managing the organization. Now we go to the 12th unit, the second last unit of this course, strategic management, MMPC 012, and it is which is basically called strategic control. Now at the end of this unit you will be able to understand the concept of strategic control process, that is the importance of strategic control in strategic management process. We saw when we were doing when we are studying the various steps in strategic management process. So there was, finding out the alternatives, then selection of the alternatives, then implementation of the alternatives, and then once it is implemented, controlling the activities, controlling the implementation process. So strategic control is again a very very important process in the strategic management process. Then we'll also be able to understand the importance of strategic control in evaluation, different methods used in strategic control process, and also analysis and follow-up action for control. Now, importance of strategic evaluation and control. Let's see. It is, as I said, it is very very necessary for it is very necessary during the strategic implementation process. It's just not that we formulate the strategy, we implement it, and then we forget it. During the process of implementation, at every step, we have to evaluate whether the whether we are moving in the right direction or not, whether we need to check whether we are in the right course of action or not. If we are following the right course of action, that means we are moving in the right direction. If we are not following the right course of action, if we are not on the right path, that means there is a need for the third point that you see here. There's a need for the mid-course correction. Timely evaluation, timely correction, timely control. These three aspects are very, very crucial in the success of strategic implementation process. We know these are our objectives. We know this is where we are supposed to reach. But while during the journey, we have to see whether we are moving in the right path or not. Is the journey in the right direction or not? If we continuously we remain alert, continuously we keep on checking, then only we'll be able to reach the destination. If we see that destination is towards the north and we are moving towards the east, that means what? There is something wrong somewhere. So that will require us to undertake corrective measures, necessary corrective measures. So that is what we call as the mid-course correction. Then we also, as a part of strategic evaluation and control, it also it is just not to see whether we are moving in the right direction or not. We also have to see what are the changes which are happening in the external environment and internal environment. Like you would recall, before we start the implementation process, we have to do the internal analysis and external analysis, and we also have to do the analysis of our competitors. So that is just not at the beginning, it is a continuous process, because during the process of implementation there could be sudden changes in the external environment. Let's say there is political instability somewhere. Now, that would warrant us to immediately bring in necessary corrections in our implementation process, in our strategies. So, changes in the external and internal environment also leads to deviations, and we have to be very much aware of these deviations. We have to continuously see where these deviations are taking us, and accordingly, we have to take necessary corrective measures. So, and then it's just not us. See, we are not in a nascent environment. It is, we have also to continuously see any kind of movement which is being taken up by our competitors, any kind of unexpected moves of our competitors. We have to see that also, because the way our competitors are moving, how they are moving, what important, because if we are bringing in changes, the our competitors are also we are also under their focus. They are continuously trying to see what we are trying to implement. Accordingly, they'll also make changes. So we have to see that the direction in which we are moving, the implementation process, the strategic organizational implementation process has the capacity to imbibe these sudden changes and ensure corrective measures. So, strategic evaluation and control occupies a very, very important position in the strategic management process. Now, let's go into the strategic control process. Strategic evaluation. Now, strategic control or strategic evaluation process can be either, see, it could be quantitative or it could be qualitative. Quantitative is at the end. Once the work is over, you see the results. The results will tell you whether we have been implementing in the right manner, whether we have been working in the right direction or not. Whereas qualitative evaluation is real-time process. It can be monitored and corrective action can be taken constantly, continuously. We can take the corrective action. So evaluation, as and when we are implementing our strategies, we have to be aware of both qualitative evaluation process and quantitative. We have to involve both, because quantitative is only once the results, the outcomes come, the outcomes show, then we'll know whether we have been in the right direction or not, and that can be quite late also. So quantitative and qualitative, they are kind of complementary to each other. So top management, what it needs to do, continuously check to see whether the strategy is being implemented to achieve the organizational objectives, and that is basically the objective of strategic evaluation process. As a result of strategic evaluation and control, the top management people, they are able to know whether the strategy is being implemented and whether we are able to achieve the organizational objectives. Now, control process has three phases. Number one, strategic control has three steps. First is the evaluation. Second is the performance. First is to define the evaluation criteria. What is the criteria for evaluating? We cannot evaluate without any kind of set parameters, the dimensions. So first we have to define those dimensions, we have to define those parameters, then we do the actual performance evaluation, and then based on the results that are determined as a result of performance evaluation, then we take the corrective measures, that is, we implement the control methods. Now, this was, I told you about the qualitative evaluation. Now, let's go to the quantitative evaluation. Quantitative evaluation, as you know, quantity That means it is based on the data. It is a post facto analysis. As I told you, it is based on the results. Once the results start accruing, then we are able to know whether we are we have been successful in achieving the stated goals and objectives. So it is a kind of quantitative evaluation. Is basically we have the expected results, we have the standardized results, and then we try to compare our actual results, the performance with these standards. So let's say the standard is here, performance is here, so there is a gap. So, as a result of quantitative analysis, quantitative evaluation, quantitative assessment of the strategic management implementation process, we are able to find out why this gap, how much is the gap, why this gap, and how what corrective measures can be taken. So, what we do is we try to compare performance of the organization. First of all, compare the not compare. First of all, we compare the actual performance with the stated performance, the standard performance, what we wanted to achieve, what we have actually achieved. We try to compare that. Then we try to compare our performance with the performance of the competitors in the industry to see whether we are in the right direction or not. And then we try to compare the performance of the organization with the industry standards. So, is to know what we are doing. Are we matching our goals and objectives? That is the standards. Number two, what our competitors are doing. Are we matching them? And then what the industry as a whole is doing, how the industry is performing, and are we near that performance level? If we are at par, that means we are successful. And if we see that we are lagging behind, then it requires what is required is we need to take the corrective measures. Okay, then we come to the operational controls. Now, there are operational departments, as you know, there are functional units, operational units. Now, each operational unit will have its own set of operational controls. So, what are the different types of operational controls? Operational controls are financial control. Then there are five kinds of operational controls. We have the financial controls. We have budgeting is again a type of operational control. Then we conduct audits. So audits could be, by the term, we generally feel it's a financial checking. No. It could be also human resource performance audit. It could be any kind of check. It could be checking or controlling any kind of resource. So audits. Then we have graphical and analytical methods of control, operational controls, like for example, PERT and CPM, critical path method, or performance evaluation technique. So, and then we have MBO, management by objectives. So these are the different types of operational controls which can be taken up in the organization for finding out the quantitative analysis or for doing the quantitative assessment of the tasks which are being performed. Then performance standards. Now, performance standards could be the historical standards, that is past performance, the industry standards, that is how the industry is performing, and the present standards, that is what we are performing now. So depending on these standards, we are able to check, we are able to assess, we are able to evaluate our performance. Now, the last unit, that is the strategy evaluation. Now, strategy evaluation, what will you understand? By the end of this unit, you should be able to understand the process of evaluation, the business portfolio analysis, the importance of qualitative measures used for evaluation. See, we have got quantitative measures of evaluation and we have qualitative measures of evaluation. So, importance of qualitative measures used for evaluation. Then the concept of balanced scorecard and characteristics of an effective evaluation system. So, At the end of strategic evaluation process, we should be at the end of this unit, we should be able to understand all these different concepts. Now, what is strategy evaluation? Uh, this is the last step of the strategic management process. So once the strategy is formulated, it is implemented. Just implementation, I would again tell you that just implementation, just a very effective strategic formulation process results in the development of excellent plan of action, excellent strategies. Is that enough? No. What we have to do is we have to ensure whether these strategies which we have formulated, which the organization has formulated, whether they are being implemented in the right direction or not. Is the organization moving in the right direction or not? So, how do we know that? We are able to know that only with the help of strategic evaluation and control. If we don't control our activities, if we don't assess our activities, if we don't continuously we don't examine our activities, are we able to know whether we are moving in the right direction? No. Same is the case with an organization. Same is the case with any strategic business unit. Same is the case of any corporate body. The corporate body has to continuously check whether all the companies within the corporate body, all the business units within the corporate body, whether they are performing as per the stated requirements, as per the standards. So once you are able to find out, as a result of strategic evaluation, once you're able to find out that the organization goals and objectives are met, that means we are successful, we are moving in the right direction. And if we see, as a result of strategic evaluation, we see that we are not moving in the right direction, that means there is something missing, there is something lacking, which requires us to take corrective measures. Necessary corrective measures. I'm not saying coercive measures, I'm saying corrective measures. And timely, please remember, timely corrective measures go a long way in defining the success of the organization. If we are able to take timely corrective measures, then only our organization will be able to move in the desired direction. Otherwise, it will be too late. So, after strategic formulation and implementation process, the last stage is strategy evaluation. Best formulated and implemented strategy needs timely, as I said, needs timely evaluation for effective achievement of organizational objectives. It's not enough to formulate, spend maximum time in formulation and implementation. No, we have to keep sufficient time. We have to see, we have to have a team responsible for this evaluation and control process. And evaluation involves control, which helps in taking corrective action. We already saw that. And please remember, evaluation, performance evaluation is a continuous process. It's not a stop and start process. It is a continuous process in the organization. Because every day changes will happen, and those changes will impact our activities, our plan of action. Either they will help in improving the work that we are doing, or they will impede. If they impede, corrective actions are required. So it is a continuous system. Now, evaluation process, there are two steps. Step one is, first of all, we select the key success factors, the critical factors. Then we try to develop measures. Then we set the standards, collect information about actual performance. That is the first step. We have the standards, we develop the measures, we have the standards, key performance standards, and then based on those key performance standards, we try to collect information of the actual performance of the organization, of the departments, of the units, of the employees. Then what do? We compare the actual with the set standards. And then we try to see if there is any kind of altered performance. We try to take the corrective action, corrective measures to bring the unit back to the course of action, main course. And then there's something. Then there's business portfolio analysis through different display metrics. So we have different kinds of display metrics for conducting portfolio analysis. BCG growth share matrix. Then we have the McKinsey matrix. Then there is a strategic planning institutes matrix, Arthur D. Little Organizations Matrix, and Hoffer's Product or Market Evaluation Matrix. So there are these five different kinds of business display metrics for conducting business portfolio analysis. Well, we come to the end of this unit, that is the 13th unit, and also we come to the end of the 6th session and also the end of Strategic Management Course Code MMPC 012. I hope you found all these sessions useful. One thing I would like to tell you, I would quickly go back to the first slide here. Yeah. So a quick recap of what all we studied in the last six sessions. Block 1, we studied the introduction to strategic management, in which we tried to understand what is the meaning and definition of strategy, its importance, the strategic formulation, what is a strategic framework, and the importance of strategy in the global context. Then we discussed the block 2, the environmental analysis, in which we saw that as a part of environmental analysis, we have the external environmental analysis, we have the internal environmental analysis, and also the organization has to conduct competitive analysis. So as to have a clear understanding of what the competitors are doing and how the organization can have a competitive advantage over the other organizations. Then we studied the block 3, formulation of strategies, and we studied the block 4 today, the strategy implementation and control. So I hope you have found all these sessions useful. All the best to all of you. Please look at the assignment questions, solve the assignments, and submit it at your study center at the right time before the deadline. Thank you so much, and namaskar.